What happens when the most powerful empire in the galaxy makes the fatal mistake of underestimating humanity? When beings who've conquered thousands of worlds look at Earth and see nothing but primitive apes with crude technology? I'm about to tell you a story that will change everything you thought you knew about humanity's place in the cosmos. A story about the day the Valdari Imperium, rulers of 47 star systems, conquerors of 200 species, learned that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one you never see coming. This isn't just another HFY story. This is about the moment when humanity's greatest weakness became our most terrifying strength. And trust me, by the end of this tale, you'll understand why the galaxy now has one unbreakable rule. Never, ever corner a human. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear involves ancient alien conspiracies, a brewing civil war among the stars, and the day humanity showed the universe what we really are. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, I'm your host, and this channel is dedicated to exploring the incredible potential of humanity through epic science fiction storytelling. We dive deep into HFY, humanity, F. Yeah. Stories that showcase what makes our species truly special in the grand cosmic arena. First, smash that like button. It helps the algorithm show this story to more people who love this kind of content, and honestly, after you hear what happens in this story, you're going to want to share it with everyone you know. Second, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We're building an amazing community here, and I've got so many more incredible stories lined up. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next week. Third, and this is important, I want to hear from you in the comments. After you hear this story, I'm going to ask you some specific questions about what you think humanity's greatest strength really is. Your insights always blow me away, and they often inspire future content. Now let me set the stage for today's story. The year is 2547. Humanity has been part of the Galactic Council for exactly 73 years. We're still considered the new kids on the cosmic block. Most alien species see us as interesting, but ultimately insignificant. Aggressive, yes, but lacking the technological sophistication or strategic thinking to pose any real threat. The Valdari Imperium has ruled their corner of the galaxy for over 8,000 years. They are masters of warfare, diplomacy, and subjugation. Their military doctrine is studied by every species in known space. Their technology is centuries beyond what humanity has achieved. And they've just made the biggest mistake in their long, illustrious history. They've decided that Earth has resources they need, and they've decided that humanity won't be able to stop them from taking those resources. What they don't know, what they can't know, is that humanity has been preparing for this moment since the day we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Admiral Kreshtar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his flagship and the pride of the Valdari fleet. Through the massive viewport, Earth hung like a blue-green jewel against the velvet darkness of space. Beautiful, he thought, almost ashamed to subjugate it. His scales, deep purple with gold accents that marked his rank, shimmered under the bridge lights as he turned to address his command staff. The bridge itself was a marvel of Valdari engineering, crystalline control stations, holographic displays showing tactical data from across the solar system, and a command throne that had been occupied by 47 admirals before him, each one victorious in their campaign. "Status report," Kreshtar commanded, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made Valdari's speech sound like music to most species. "All fleet elements in position, Admiral," replied his tactical officer, a younger Valdari whose scales still showed the bright green of youth. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 cruisers, and 132 support vessels. "We have complete orbital superiority over the human homeworld." Kreshtar nodded, satisfied. The humans had detected their arrival, of course. Their sensor technology was adequate, if primitive. But detection and defense were two very different things. "Open a channel to the human leadership," he ordered. "Let's give them the opportunity to surrender with dignity." The main view screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Network. Kreshtar had studied her file extensively. 53 years old, veteran of humanity's brief but brutal war with the Kryn Raiders, decorated for tactical innovation during the Battle of Titan. Impressive for a human, but ultimately irrelevant. "Admiral Chen," Kreshtar began, his translator converting his melodic speech into flat human English. "I am Admiral Kreshtar of the Valdari Imperium. I come bearing an offer from the High Council." Chan's expression remained neutral, but Kreshtar's enhanced vision caught the micro-expressions that betrayed her tension. "Fear," he thought. "Good. Fear makes this easier." "We're listening," Chen said simply. "Earth possesses certain resources that the Imperium requires," Kreshtar continued. "Specifically, your planet's deposits of Quantium-7 and your rather unique biosphere. The High Council has determined that these resources would be better utilized under Valdari stewardship." He paused, letting the implications sink in. On the view screen, Chen's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "We are prepared to offer generous terms," Kreshtar said. "Humanity will be granted protectorate status within the Imperium. You will maintain limited self-governance over your remaining colonies. In exchange, Earth itself will be transferred to Valdari control, and your population will be relocated to suitable worlds within our territory." "You want us to give you our homeworld," Chen said flatly. "We are offering to relocate your species peacefully," Kreshtar corrected. "The alternative is less pleasant. I have 200 warships at my command, Admiral Chen. Your entire defense fleet numbers what? 40 vessels? And those are primarily patrol craft and system defense platforms." He leaned forward in his command throne. "I have studied human history extensively, Admiral. Your species has a saying, 'Discretion is the better part of valor.' I suggest you exercise that discretion now." For a long moment, Chen said nothing. Then, to Kreshtar's surprise, she smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Admiral Kreshtar, I appreciate you doing your homework on human culture. Let me return the favor by sharing another human saying. Fetch around and find out." The transmission cut. Kreshtar stared at the blank screen, momentarily stunned. Then he began to laugh, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Brave," he said to his officers. "Foolish, but brave. Very well. If they choose the hard way, we shall oblige them." He settled back into his throne. "Begin the demonstration. Target their lunar colonies. Low-yield plasma bombardment. Let's show them what resistance costs." On the bridge of the Defiant, humanity's flagship, Admiral Chen watched the Valdari fleet begin to maneuver. Around her, the command crew worked with practiced efficiency, but she could feel the tension in the air. "Ma'am, Valdari fleet is targeting Luna Base Alpha," reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb from Tactical. "They're charging weapons." Chen nodded slowly. "Evacuate all personnel from the lunar surface. Activate Protocol Lazarus." Webb's head snapped up. "Ma'am? Are you sure? That's—" "I know what it is, Commander," Chen interrupted. "Do it." As Webb relayed the orders, Chen opened a private channel. "This is Chen. Initiate Lazarus." "Authorization. Chen Alpha 77 Tango." A voice responded, calm and measured. "Lazarus protocol confirmed. Awakening the ghosts." Chen closed her eyes briefly. 73 years. 73 years of preparation, of building, of waiting for this exact moment. The Valdari thought they knew humanity. They'd studied our wars, our tactics, our technology. They had no idea what they were really looking at. On the lunar surface, the Valdari plasma bombardment began. Brilliant blue-white beams lanced down from orbit, striking the domed colonies with devastating precision. The domes shattered, their atmospheres venting into space in glittering clouds of ice crystals. Kreshtar watched with satisfaction. Excellent. Now, open another channel to... Admiral! His sensor officer's voice cracked with alarm. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the solar system. They're everywhere. What? Kreshtar strode to the sensor station. Show me. The holographic display lit up with hundreds, no, thousands of new contacts. They appeared to be emerging from nothing. One moment empty space, the next, ships. But not just any ships. Those energy signatures, the sensor officer whispered. They're not matching any known human technology. They're not matching anything in our database. Kreshtar stared at the display, his confidence wavering for the first time. The ships were unlike anything he'd ever seen. Sleek, dark, and utterly silent. They moved with a grace that seemed to defy physics, appearing and disappearing from sensors in ways that should have been impossible. How many? He demanded. Still counting, sir. At least 3,000 vessels. And, Admiral? The sensor officer looked up, his scales pale with fear. They're not broadcasting any identification. It's like they don't exist. On the Defiant, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Valdari fleet's formation begin to waver. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Kreshtar, she murmured. Let me introduce you to humanity's little secret. While Admiral Kreshtar faced the unexpected appearance of humanity's hidden fleet, a very different drama was unfolding in the Valdari capital of Treshkal, 47 light-years away. Counselor Vexira stood in the shadows of the High Council chamber, her scales deliberately dimmed to avoid drawing attention. She was young for a counselor, barely 300 years old, but she had risen quickly through the ranks by being smarter, more ruthless, and more patient than her rivals. And right now, her patience was about to pay off. The invasion fleet has engaged the humans, announced High Counselor Threnax from his elevated platform. The ancient Valdari's scales were nearly white with age, and his voice carried the weight of 8,000 years of imperial history. Admiral Kreshtar reports that initial resistance was minimal. Earth will be ours within the week. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. The High Council consisted of 12 members, each representing one of the great houses of the Valdari Imperium. For centuries, they had ruled with absolute authority, their decisions shaping the fate of billions. But Vexira knew something they didn't. Something that would change everything. She had been communicating with a faction within the Imperium, younger Valdari, who believed the old ways were leading their species to stagnation. They called themselves the Renewal, and they had been planning a coup for decades. The invasion of Earth was supposed to be a distraction. While the military focused on subjugating humanity, the Renewal would strike at the heart of the Imperium, removing the old guard and installing new leadership. There was just one problem. Vexira had been receiving disturbing intelligence reports about humanity. Reports that suggested the humans were far more dangerous than anyone realized. She had tried to warn the High Council, tried to suggest that perhaps Earth wasn't the easy target they assumed, but the old fools had dismissed her concerns. After all, what could primitive humans possibly do against the might of the Valdari Imperium? Now, as she watched the Council celebrate their impending victory, Vexira felt a cold dread settling in her chest. She had a terrible feeling that they were about to learn the answer to that question. And it was going to cost them everything. Counselor Vexira. Threnax's voice cut through her thoughts. You seem troubled. Do you not share in our triumph? All eyes turned to her. Vexira forced her scales to brighten, projecting confidence she didn't feel. Of course, High Counselor, she said smoothly. I merely wonder if we've adequately prepared for all contingencies. The humans are known for their unpredictability. Threnax's laugh was like breaking glass. Unpredictable? They are children playing with toys they barely understand. Admiral Kreshtar has 200 warships. The humans have barely 40. The mathematics are simple. Mathematics don't account for desperation, Vexira replied carefully. Or ingenuity. Then it's fortunate we face neither, Threnak said dismissively. The humans will surrender, or they will be destroyed. Either outcome is acceptable. Vexira bowed her head in apparent submission, but her mind was racing. She needed to contact her allies in the renewal. If the invasion went wrong, if the humans proved more dangerous than expected, it could derail their entire plan. But more than that, she was beginning to wonder if perhaps they had all made a terrible mistake, not just in underestimating humanity, but in assuming that the old ways of conquest and subjugation were still viable in a changing galaxy. As the Council continued their celebration, Vexira slipped away, her scales dimming once more as she disappeared into the shadows. She had calls to make, plans to adjust, and a growing sense that the galaxy was about to change in ways none of them could predict. Admiral Kreshtar had been in combat for over 2 centuries. He had faced down rebellions, pirate fleets, and even the legendary Kryn armadas. He had never in all those years felt genuine fear. Until now. "Report," he barked, his harmonious voice now sharp with tension. "What are those ships?" His science officer, a Valdari named Shenkor who had served with him for 50 years, looked up from his console with an expression of complete bewilderment. "Admiral, I don't know. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. They're using some form of propulsion that doesn't register on our standard sensors. And their hulls..." He paused, running the scans again, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Their hulls appear to be absorbing our sensor beams. We can only detect them when they want us to." "That's impossible," Kreshtar said flatly. "Stealth technology has theoretical limits. You can't just make a ship invisible to all forms of detection." "Apparently you can," Shenkor replied. "Because they're doing it." On the view screen, one of the mysterious ships glided past a Valdari cruiser. It was close enough that they could see it with optical sensors. A sleek, dark vessel that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns pulsed along its hull, like veins carrying luminescent blood. "Hail them," Kreshtar ordered. "I want to know who they are and what they want." The communications officer worked his console, then shook his head. "No response, Admiral. They're not even acknowledging our hails." "Then fire a warning shot across their bow. Let's see how they react." "Admiral," the tactical officer's voice was panicked. "The human flagship is hailing us." Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again, and this time Kreshtar noticed something he'd missed before. She wasn't afraid. She was confident. "Admiral Kreshtar," Chen said, and there was something almost like pity in her voice. "I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw your fleet and leave our system. Not because I'm merciful, but because what's about to happen, well, let's just say the galaxy doesn't need to see it." "You dare threaten me?" Kreshtar snarled. "I have 200 warships. You have... What are those things? Some kind of automated drones? Clever, I'll admit, but they're not drones." Chen interrupted. "They're crude vessels. And they're not some new technology we just developed." She paused, and her expression became grave. "Admiral, those ships have been out there for 70 years. Waiting, watching, preparing for the day when someone like you decided Earth was an easy target." Kreshtar felt his scales ripple with unease. 70 years? That's impossible. We've been monitoring your system. We would have detected... "Would you?" Chen asked. "You detected our patrol ships, our defense platforms, our orbital stations. You saw exactly what we wanted you to see. But those ships," she gestured off-screen, "those are what we call the Ghost Fleet. and they've been hiding in plain sight since the day we joined the Galactic Council. You're bluffing, Kreshtar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why? Chen leaned forward. Let me tell you a story, Admiral. When humanity first made contact with alien species, we learned something important. We learned that the galaxy operates on a very simple principle. The strong take from the weak. We learned that no matter how many treaties we signed, no matter how many alliances we formed, there would always be someone who looked at Earth and saw resources to be exploited. She paused, letting her words sink in. So we made a decision. We would appear weak. We would build a fleet that looked impressive by our standards, but laughable by galactic ones. We would play the role of the naive newcomers, eager to learn from our more advanced neighbors. And all the while, Chen continued, we were building something else, something hidden. We took our best scientists, our most innovative engineers, and we gave them unlimited resources and one simple directive. Build ships that could defeat any threat, no matter how advanced. Kreshtar's tactical display suddenly lit up with new data. The Ghost Fleet ships were moving, forming a perfect sphere around his fleet. The precision was inhuman. No, superhuman. Every ship moved in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by a single mind. Those ships use technology that doesn't exist in any galactic database, Chen said. Because we didn't develop it from galactic technology. We started from scratch, using principles that your scientists dismissed as impossible or impractical. We thought differently. We innovated differently, and now... She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who had just cornered her prey. Now you're going to learn why you should never, ever underestimate humanity. Ships, defensive formation, Kreshtar ordered. Prepare to engage. The Valdari fleet, trained and disciplined, moved into a battle formation that had been perfected over millennia. Dreadnoughts at the center, cruisers forming a protective shell, support vessels ready to provide covering fire. It was a formation that had never failed, until today. The Ghost Fleet didn't attack, not immediately. Instead, one ship, larger than the others, clearly a flagship, moved forward. It glided through space with an eerie grace, coming to a stop directly in front of the Eternal Dominion. Target that ship, Kreshtar ordered. All forward batteries fire. The Eternal Dominion unleashed its main weapons. Plasma cannons that could vaporize a small moon, particle beams that could slice through the strongest armor, missiles carrying warheads powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. The ghost ship didn't dodge. It didn't raise shields. It simply absorbed the attack. The energy weapons struck its hull and seemed to disappear, as if the ship was drinking them in. The missiles detonated against its surface, and the explosions were somehow muted, contained, their fury swallowed by the dark hull. When the barrage ended, the ghost ship was completely undamaged. Impossible, Shenko whispered. The energy had to go somewhere. It can't just vanish. It didn't vanish. Chen's voice came over the comm. It was stored. You see, Admiral, our ships don't use conventional shields. They use something we call adaptive absorption fields. Every attack you throw at them makes them stronger. As if to demonstrate, the ghost ship began to glow. Faint at first, then brighter, until it was surrounded by an aura of captured energy. And now, Chen said quietly, they give it back. The ghost ship released the stored energy in a single, focused pulse. It wasn't aimed at the Eternal Dominion. Chen had been serious about giving them a chance to withdraw. Instead, it targeted an uninhabited asteroid about 50 kilometers away. The asteroid simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not shattered. It was converted directly into energy and dispersed into space. The Valdari bridge fell silent. That was your attack, Admiral, Chen said. Amplified and redirected. Imagine what would happen if we aimed it at your ships." Kreshtar stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been. His mind, trained by centuries of military strategy, was racing through options. Retreat? Unthinkable. The Valdari Imperium did not retreat. Negotiate? On what terms? They had nothing to offer that would satisfy the humans now. Attack? With what? Every weapon they used would only make the Ghost Fleet stronger. "There's more," Chen continued, and now her voice carried a note of warning. "Those ships aren't just weapons platforms. They're crewed by volunteers, men and women who've spent their entire adult lives training for this moment. They've lived in those ships, studied every known form of combat, prepared for every possible scenario." She paused. "They're not soldiers, Admiral. They're ghosts. And they've been waiting 70 years for someone to give them a reason to stop hiding." While Admiral Kreshtar grappled with the impossible situation at Earth, Counselor Vexira was dealing with her own crisis. The renewal had moved up their timeline. She stood in a secure communication chamber deep beneath the Council building, speaking with Commander Zektar, leader of the renewal's military wing. "This is madness," Vexira hissed, her scales flashing red with agitation. "We agreed to wait until the fleet returned from Earth. We need those ships to secure the capital." Zektar's image flickered in the holographic display. He was younger than Vexira, his scales still showing the vibrant colors of youth, but his eyes held the cold calculation of a born strategist. "The situation has changed," he replied calmly. "We've been monitoring the communications from the invasion fleet. The humans are not the easy target we assumed. If Kreshtar's fleet is defeated, or worse, if they're forced to retreat, the High Council will use it as an excuse to crack down on dissent. They'll say the Imperium needs unity in the face of external threats. Sue, instead. You're going to start a civil war?" Vexira demanded. "We're going to save the Imperium," Zektar corrected. "The old guard has led us to stagnation. They've made us arrogant, convinced us that our way is the only way. The humans are proving them wrong, and if we don't act now, the entire Imperium will pay the price for their hubris." Vexira wanted to argue, but she couldn't. She'd seen the intelligence reports, the sensor data from the Ghost Fleet. The humans had developed technology that shouldn't exist, using principles that Valdari scientists had dismissed as impossible. What did that say about the Imperium? About their vaunted superiority? "How long until you move?" she asked finally. 3 hours, Zektar replied. "We have forces positioned around all key government buildings. The High Council will be taken into custody and a provisional government will be established. We're calling it the Valdari Reformation. And if they resist," Zektar's expression hardened, "then they'll be removed permanently. The Imperium cannot afford to cling to the past any longer." After the communication ended, Vexira sat in the darkness, her scales dimmed to near invisibility. She had helped plan this coup, had believed in the necessity of change, but now, with everything happening so fast, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were all dancing on the edge of a precipice. The humans had hidden their true strength for 70 years. What else had they hidden? What other surprises were waiting in the shadows? And more importantly, what would the galaxy look like when all of this was over? High Counselor Threnax was not a fool. He had ruled the Valdari Imperium for over 400 years, and he had survived countless political challenges, assassination attempts, and military coups. He knew when something was wrong. The reports from Earth were troubling. Admiral Kreshtar's communications had become increasingly terse, and the tactical data suggested that the invasion was not going according to plan. But more concerning were the movements he'd detected within the capital itself. Troop deployments that didn't match any authorized orders. Communications blackouts in key sectors. The subtle signs of a conspiracy coming to fruition. He stood in his private chambers, looking out over the glittering cityscape of Treshkal. The capital was beautiful at night, its towers reaching toward the stars like fingers grasping for infinity. "They're coming for us," said a voice behind him. Threnax didn't turn. He recognized the voice of Counselor Mershdan, one of his oldest allies. "I know," Threnax replied. "The renewal. They think they can save the Imperium by destroying everything we've built. Can we stop them?" "No." Threnax finally turned to face his old friend. "They've been planning this for years. They have the military, the popular support, and now they have the perfect excuse: our failure at Earth." Mershan's scales paled. "Then what do we do?" Threnax was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that shocked his old friend to the core. "We surrender." "What? We surrender?" Threnax repeated. "We step down peacefully, and we let the renewal take control. Because if we fight, we'll tear the Imperium apart. And right now, with the humans proving to be far more dangerous than we ever imagined, we cannot afford a civil war." He walked to his desk and began composing a message. "I will address the High Council in 1 hour. I will announce our resignation and support for a transitional government. The renewal will have their reformation. They'll put us on trial," Mershan warned. "They'll make examples of us." "Perhaps," Threnax agreed. "But the Imperium will survive, and that's all that matters." As he finished the message, Threnax allowed himself one moment of bitter reflection. The Valdari Imperium had ruled for 8,000 years, convinced of their superiority, certain that their way was the only way. The humans had shattered that certainty in a single day. Perhaps he thought the Renewer was right. Perhaps it was time for change, even if that change came at the cost of everything he had worked for. Admiral Kreshtar had made his decision. Pride be damned, he was not going to sacrifice his entire fleet for a planet that was clearly far more trouble than it was worth. "Open a channel to Admiral Chen," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. When Chen's face appeared on the screen, Kreshtar forced himself to meet her gaze. "You've made your point," he said. "We will withdraw from your system. But know this, Admiral. The Imperium will not forget this humiliation. You may have won today, but you've made an enemy of the most powerful force in this sector." To his surprise, Chen shook her head. "No, Admiral. We haven't made an enemy. We've made a statement." "A statement?" "For 73 years, we've been part of the Galactic Council," Chen explained. "And for 73 years, we've watched how the galaxy works. The strong dominate the weak. The advanced exploit the primitive. Treaties and alliances mean nothing when one side has overwhelming force." She leaned forward. "We could have revealed the Ghost Fleet years ago. We could have used it to conquer, to expand, to become just another empire carving up the galaxy. But that's not who we are." "Then what are you?" Kreshtar asked, genuinely curious despite his defeat. "We're survivors," Chen replied. "We're a species that learned, long before we ever left our planet, that the universe doesn't care about fairness or justice. It only cares about strength. So we became strong. But we also remembered what it was like to be weak." She gestured to the Ghost Fleet surrounding the Valdari ships. "These vessels, this technology, it's not meant for conquest. It's meant for deterrence. We built it so that no one would ever be able to do to us what you tried to do today. And now that we've revealed it," Chen continued, "every species in the galaxy will know that Earth is not an easy target, that humanity is not to be trifled with. But more than that, they'll know that we chose not to use this power for aggression." Kreshtar was beginning to understand. "You're trying to change the rules." "We're trying to prove that strength doesn't have to mean domination," Chen corrected. "That a species can be powerful without being predatory. It's a lesson the galaxy desperately needs to learn." She paused, then added, "And speaking of lessons, Admiral, You should know that we've been monitoring communications from your homeworld. It seems the Valdari Imperium is going through some changes. Kreshtar's scales rippled with shock. What do you know about that? Enough, Shen replied. We know about the renewal, we know about the coup, and we know that your High Council is about to step down. How could you possibly... Kreshtar stopped, realization dawning. You've been spying on us. For how long? Chen smiled slightly. Admiral, we've been spying on everyone since the day we joined the Galactic Council. Did you really think we'd enter a community of advanced alien species without doing our homework? She pulled up a holographic display showing a complex web of connections. Intelligence networks, communication intercepts, even agents embedded in various governments. We knew about the renewal before they even had a name, Chen said. We've been watching the political tensions in the Imperium for years. In fact, we've been quietly supporting the renewal through back channels. Kreshtar felt as if the ground had dropped out from under him. You helped orchestrate a coup in the Imperium? We provided information and resources to people who wanted change, Chen corrected. The renewal made their own choices, but yes, we saw an opportunity to help reshape the Valdari Imperium into something less aggressive. She leaned back in her chair. You see, Admiral, this was never just about defending Earth. This was about changing the balance of power in the galaxy. The Valdari Imperium has been a destabilizing force for centuries. You conquer, you subjugate, you enforce your will on weaker species. The renewal wants to change that. They want the Imperium to become a partner rather than a master. And you're helping them because a galaxy where cooperation is valued over conquest is a galaxy where humanity can thrive, Chen said simply. We're not interested in empire building, Admiral. We're interested in survival, and we've learned that the best way to survive is to make sure everyone else has a stake in our survival too. Kreshtar was silent for a long moment, processing everything he'd learned. Finally, he said, You're more dangerous than I ever imagined, not because of your weapons, but because of your thinking. We prefer to think of it as being more evolved, Chen replied with a slight smile. Now, Admiral, I'm going to let you return to your homeworld. When you get there, you're going to find a very different Imperium than the one you left. I suggest you adapt quickly. And if I don't, Chen's expression hardened. Then you'll find yourself on the wrong side of history. The galaxy is changing, Admiral. The age of conquest is ending. The age of cooperation is beginning. You can either be part of that change, or you can be left behind. As the Valdari fleet began its retreat from Earth's solar system, Admiral Kreshtar stood on his bridge, watching the Ghost Fleet maintain their perfect formation around his ships, not threatening, but clearly capable of destroying them at any moment. His communications officer approached hesitantly. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Treskar. It's High Counselor Threnax. Kreshtar nodded for the transmission to be put through. When Threnax's aged face appeared on the screen, Kreshtar was shocked by what he saw. The High Counselor's scales were dim, his posture defeated. Admiral Kreshtar, Threnax said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I am contacting you to inform you that the High Council has voted to dissolve itself. A transitional government led by the renewal will take control within the hour. High Counselor, Kreshtar began, but Threnax held up a hand. The invasion of Earth was a mistake, Threnax continued. A mistake born of arrogance and outdated thinking. The humans have shown us that we are not as superior as we believed, and the renewal has shown us that our own people are tired of the old ways. He paused, his ancient eyes meeting Kreshtar's through the screen. Return home, Admiral, but know that the Imperium you return to will not be the one you left. Change is coming, whether we embrace it or resist it is up to us." The transmission ended, leaving Kreshtar staring at the blank screen. "Admiral," his tactical officer asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Kreshtar looked around his bridge at the officers who had served with him for decades. They were looking to him for guidance, for certainty in an uncertain time. "Set course for Treshgal," he said finally. "Maximum speed. We're going home." As the Eternal Dominion and the remnants of the invasion fleet jumped to FTL, leaving Earth's solar system behind, Kreshtar allowed himself one last look at the blue-green planet that had changed everything. The humans had won. Not through superior firepower, though they clearly had that. Not through military genius, though their strategy had been flawless. They had won through patience, through planning, and through understanding that true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to. It was a lesson the Valdari Imperium had never learned. Perhaps, Kreshtar thought, it was time they did. 3 months after the failed invasion of Earth, Councillor Vexira stood in the same High Council chamber where she had once plotted revolution. But now, everything was different. The ornate throne where Threnax had sat for centuries was gone, replaced by a simple circular table where 12 councillors, representing both the old guard and the renewal, sat as equals. The chamber itself had been redesigned, the symbols of conquest and domination replaced, with images of cooperation and growth. "The reformation is proceeding ahead of schedule," Commander Zekthar reported. He was no longer just a military commander. He was now the Imperium's Minister of Defense, tasked with rebuilding their military along less aggressive lines. "We've begun negotiations with 17 species that were previously under our subjugation," Vexira added. "Most are willing to consider new treaties based on mutual benefit rather than forced compliance." "And the humans?" asked one of the other councillors. Vexira smiled. "The humans have been surprisingly helpful. They've offered technological exchanges, trade agreements, and even military cooperation. But they've made it clear that these offers come with conditions." "What conditions?" "That we commit to peaceful expansion only, that we respect the sovereignty of other species, that we become partners in building a more stable galaxy, rather than conquerors seeking to dominate." One of the older councillors, a holdover from Threnax's regime, spoke up. "And if we refuse," Vexira's expression hardened, "then we face the Ghost Fleet. And after what happened at Earth, I don't think anyone wants that." The chamber fell silent as everyone remembered the reports from Admiral Kreshtar. The impossible ships, the technology that defied understanding, the casual demonstration of power that had reduced an asteroid to energy. "The humans have changed the game," Vexira continued. "For 8,000 years, the Imperium ruled through strength. Now, the humans have shown that they're stronger. But instead of using that strength to conquer us, they're offering partnership." She looked around the table at her fellow councillors. "We have a choice. We can cling to the old ways and eventually be swept aside by history. Or we can embrace change and help build something new. What do you recommend?" Zekthar asked. "I recommend we accept the humans' offer," Vexira said. "Not because we're weak, but because we're smart enough to recognize when we've been outmaneuvered. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, they defeated our entire way of thinking." She pulled up a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. "Look at this. In the 3 months since Earth, 17 species have declared independence from various empires. 23 new alliances have formed. The entire galactic order is shifting. And at the center of it all," she continued, "are the humans. Not because they're conquering anyone, but because they're offering an alternative. A galaxy where strength is used for protection rather than domination, where cooperation is valued over conquest." One of the younger councillors leaned forward. "You're saying the humans are creating a new galactic order?" "I'm saying they already have," Vexira replied. The question is whether we're going to be part of it or left behind. The vote was unanimous. The Valdari Imperium would accept humanity's offer of partnership. As the meeting adjourned, Vexera stood alone in the chamber, looking at the new symbols adorning the walls. The age of the Imperium was over. The age of the Reformation had begun. And it had all started because the humans had done something no one expected. They had hidden their true strength until the moment it was needed most. Admiral Kreshter stood in his quarters aboard the Eternal Dominion, now docked at Treshkal's orbital station. He had been offered a position in the new government. The renewal wanted experienced military leaders who could help reshape the Imperium's defense forces. But he wasn't sure he wanted it. A chime at his door announced a visitor. "Enter," he called. To his surprise, it was Admiral Chen. The human had traveled all the way from Earth to the Valdari homeworld. "Admiral Chen," Kreshtar said, his scales rippling with surprise. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I wanted to speak with you personally," Chen replied. "May I sit?" Kreshtar gestured to a chair, and Chen settled into it with the easy grace of someone comfortable in any environment. "I've been following your career," Chen said. 200 years of military service, 47 successful campaigns. You're considered one of the finest tactical minds in the Imperium. "Was," Kreshtar corrected bitterly. "Until I led a fleet to defeat against a species I underestimated." "You didn't underestimate us," Chen said. "You estimated us based on the information you had. That's not a failure. That's good intelligence work on our part." She leaned forward. "Admiral, I didn't come here to gloat. I came to offer you a position." Kreshtar's scales rippled with surprise. "A position? With humanity?" "The new Galactic Defense Initiative," Chen corrected. "We're forming a joint military force. Humans, Valdari, and representatives from 24 other species. Its purpose is to protect against genuine threats, not to conquer or subjugate. Do you want me to be part of this?" "I want you to help lead it," Chen said. "You have experience, tactical knowledge, and most importantly, you've learned a valuable lesson about underestimating your opponents. That makes you exactly the kind of leader we need." Kreshtar was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "Why? After what I tried to do to your world, why would you trust me?" Chen smiled. "Because you're asking that question. Because you're capable of learning and adapting. And because the galaxy needs leaders who understand that strength without wisdom is just violence." She stood. "Think about it, Admiral. The offer stands. We're building something new here. Something that's never existed before. A galaxy where cooperation is valued over conquest, where strength is used to protect rather than dominate." "It sounds idealistic," Kreshtar said. "It is," Chen agreed. "But idealism backed by the Ghost Fleet has a way of becoming reality." After Chen left, Kreshtar stood at his viewport, looking down at Treshkal. The city was changing, adapting to the new order. Everywhere he looked, he saw signs of the Reformation, new construction, new symbols, new hope. Perhaps, he thought, it was time for him to change too. He activated his communication console and sent a message to Admiral Chen. "I accept your offer." Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Unity, flagship of the Galactic Defense Initiative. Around her, a crew of humans, Valdari, and a dozen other species worked in perfect harmony. "Status report," she requested. "All sectors reporting green," replied Commander Vexera, who had left the Valdari government to join the GDI. "The patrol routes are clear, and we've had no incidents in the past 3 months." Chen nodded, satisfied. 5 years since the confrontation at Earth, and the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Valdari Imperium had completed its reformation, transforming from a conquering empire into a federation of allied worlds. The Ghost Fleet had been revealed to the entire galaxy, serving as both a deterrent and a promise. Humanity would protect those who couldn't protect themselves, but would not tolerate aggression. 27 new alliances had formed, based on cooperation rather than domination. Trade flourished, technology was shared, the old order of conquest and subjugation was giving way to something new. Admiral Chen called Admiral Kreshta from his station. The Valdari had proven to be one of the GDI's most valuable assets, his centuries of military experience invaluable in training the new joint forces. "We're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. The Kryn are raiding again." Chen smiled slightly. The Kryn, the same pirates who had once attacked human colonies, were now learning what it meant to face a united galaxy. "Dispatch the Third Fleet," she ordered, "and Kreshtar, you have command." The Valdari's scales brightened with pride. "Understood, Admiral. We'll handle it." As the Unity changed course, Chen looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Ghost Fleet still waited, hidden in the shadows, ready to emerge if needed. But increasingly, they weren't needed. The galaxy was learning. "You know," Vexera said quietly, coming to stand beside Chen. 5 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be serving on a human ship working alongside species from across the galaxy, I would have thought they were insane. "And now?" Chen asked. "Now, I can't imagine doing anything else," Vexera replied. "You humans, you changed everything, not through conquest, but through patience, through showing us a better way." Chen shook her head. "We didn't change anything. We just revealed what was always possible. The galaxy was ready for change. It just needed someone to take the first step. And you took that step by building the Ghost Fleet," Vexera said, "by hiding your strength until the moment it was needed most." "We took that step by understanding something fundamental," Chen corrected. "That true power isn't about domination. It's about having the strength to protect what matters and the wisdom to know when to use that strength." She turned to face Vexera. "The Ghost Fleet was never meant to conquer. It was meant to ensure that no one could conquer us. And in doing so, we showed the galaxy that there was another way." "A better way," Vexera agreed. As the Unity jumped to FTL, carrying its diverse crew toward their next mission, Chan allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy was far from perfect. There were still conflicts, still challenges, still species that clung to the old ways. But change had begun. And it had started the day humanity revealed its unseen power. Not the power of the Ghost Fleet, impressive as that was, but the power of patience, of planning, of understanding that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to use your strength. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way, and it would never forget. And that, my friends, is the story of how humanity changed the galaxy, not through conquest, but through patience and preparation. Think about what we just witnessed here. The Valdari Imperium, 8,000 years of dominance, centuries of military superiority, brought to their knees not by superior firepower, but by superior thinking. The humans didn't just build better weapons, they built a better strategy. For 73 years, humanity played the long game. They appeared weak while building strength. They seemed naive while gathering intelligence. They acted like students while teaching the galaxy a lesson it desperately needed to learn. And here's what I find most fascinating. The Ghost Fleet was never the real weapon. The real weapon was humanity's understanding of psychology, of strategy, of how to change the rules of the game itself. The Valdari thought they were facing a primitive species with crude technology. What they were actually facing was a species that had spent its entire history learning how to survive against impossible odds. A species that understood that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure the fight never happens in the first place. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. First question: Do you think humanity's strategy of hiding their true strength for 70 years was ethical? They essentially deceived the entire galaxy. Was that justified, or did it cross a line? Second, what do you think was humanity's greatest strength in this story? Was it the Ghost Fleet technology, their intelligence network, their patience, or something else entirely? Third, the subplot with the Valdari Reformation showed that humanity wasn't just defending themselves. They were actively working to reshape galactic politics. Do you think that was the right move, or were they overstepping? And here's the big one. If you were in Admiral Chen's position, would you have revealed the Ghost Fleet earlier, later, or would you have kept it hidden even longer? Drop your answers in the comments below. I read every single comment, and your insights often inspire future stories. Some of the best discussions happen in the comments section, and I love seeing how differently people interpret these tales. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. It really does help the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this. We're building something special here, a community of people who love exploring humanity's potential through science fiction. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that notification bell. I've got so many more stories lined up. Next week, we're diving into a tale about what happens when one human's epic journey when they are left alone in the stars. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep reaching for the stars, and remember, humanity's greatest strength is the one nobody sees coming.